to show you how to change brake pads and rotors on a 2003 Toyota Sequoia. What you're going to need is a Miller Lite and your favorite koozie. Before you start working, you want to take your koozie off because your hands are going to get dirty and you don't want to ruin your koozie. Step one. Then you're going to need your new parts, brake pads, and rotors. First thing you want to do before you put the vehicle in the air is get your 4-way or your impact wrench and break the lug nuts loose, because once you get it up in the air the tire's going to spin. It's going to be too hard to break them loose. So what we're going to do, I'm going to break the lug nuts loose, then I'm going to get it up in the air on the jack stands and pull them off, and we'll start breaking it down and taking the brake pads off and the rotors. Alright, so what we're going to do here, break our lug nuts loose. Remember, before you get your hands dirty, take your koozie off. You're going to throw the can away. You never get your faded koozie back. I like to use a 4-way just because I'm a grown-ass man and I don't need a... Okay, maybe I might need one. Alright, we had to make a substitution because that baby 4-way just wasn't going to cut it on this beast. Alright, so what we're doing is breaking the lug nuts loose. Alright, so we got all the lug nuts broke loose. What we're going to do now is get it up in the air, get it on jack stands. Always use jack stands. Don't ever trust your jack to stay up in the air. You never know when one of these things can release and crush you and kill you. For a safety precaution, what you want to do is, I used a brick to chalk the back wheels so that it doesn't roll around on you. But I'm going to find a solid place to lift this thing up in the air, and we'll get it up on jack stands and start pulling the wheels off. Alright, so we're going to put our jack stands in right on the cross member, the outside edge of the cross member, and have to jack it up a little bit more so that we get on in the groove here. You always want to make sure you got your jack stands the same level so that when you sit them down on there, it's not sitting at an angle. Alright, when you're letting your jack down on your jack stands, try to do it as slow as you can. Sometimes these things release pretty fast, so ain't really a whole lot you can do about it. Just make sure everybody's well clear when you're doing it. Alright, looks like we're good. Redneck pit crew. Alright, so we're in. They don't look too bad, but it's got a shimmy to it. Probably warped rotors. We're going to pull them off, get them replaced, put some new brake pads on here, and get her all fixed up. Alright, so what we're going to do here is pull the brake pads out so that we can get access to this rotor and try to get it out without pulling the caliper off, hoping for, because I got to take all this other stuff off to get the caliper out. So all I got to do, pull these little pins here, pull the pins out and pull these brake pads out. They should come right out. Say should. Well, this one's gonna be a pain, buddy.
What tool are you using?
Needle nose pliers.
What tool did you use to pull the brake pads?
It's just a scribe. And these pads, they look pretty good. I mean, still got a lot of wear left on them, but I just don't want to use old pads on new rotors. Alright, so what we're doing here, I'm going to take this caliper off so that we can get the rotor off. And this rotor, or this caliper, got hard brake lines, and they're mounted to your spindle here. So to not break them, I'm going to take off the mounting point where I just have the soft brake line, so I can move around. And I've got a little hanger here to hang it on, so that there's no stress on the brake line. So when you're pulling this caliper off, you want to make sure that you just take out the two spindle mounting points. Don't take these two out because it's a split caliper because it's 4 pistons. And if you do, you're going to have brake fluid leak all out of here. We're trying to do that without losing any brake fluid and make it a simple brake change. Like I said, have some place to hang it so you don't put stress on the brake lines. Just like that. And now we're ready to start reassembly. Got a C-clamp up here, just kind of on the upper 8 arm, and the running end going through the caliper so that it's not hanging by the brake line, putting stress on it. Because sometimes these get brittle, and these hard brake lines, you don't want to bend them, because if you bend them and you try to bend them back, then they break off and you get a kink in them and then you don't have proper brake pressure. All that good stuff. So that's how to do it. Alright, so we got the new rotor on, but before I get the rotor in place and put the caliper back on, I need to make room for the new pads and rotor because they're going to be thicker than the old ones. So what I'm going to do is put the old rotor in place, or our old brake pad in place, put my C-clamp on here and tighten it down, and that will compress my pistons here. And before you do this, you want to make sure you take the cap off your reservoir, because it's going to send all this brake fluid from the pistons here up into the reservoir. And so take the cap off, make sure you don't have too much pressure in there. And if you have to move a whole lot, like these brake pads are pretty good, so we didn't have to move our piston a whole lot. If you got to move it a long way, you want somebody up there watching the reservoir so you don't overflow and get brake fluid all over your engine compartment.
And this is the reservoir he's talking about.
Just want to make sure the cap is off, and you want to have someone keep an eye and make sure the brake fluid doesn't overflow while he's compressing.
Alright, so what we're doing here is putting the caliper back on, tighten everything down. Then we're going to slide the brake pads in and button her all up, and then we'll be ready to hit the other side. Alright, so we got our clearance to put the brake pads back in. They slide right back into place like butter. Got our pins. Go through the bottom. And a little clip to hold it in place. Be careful when you pull these out because they might shoot off, and you get lucky you can find them again. We got to slide our anti-rattle clip into place. Kind of a pain in the ass. Make sure you don't put it on backwards. This can be kind of a chore, getting everything lined up and putting the pins back in place. And there you go. You want to get inside, pump the brakes up, get them all compressed together, and holding the rotor in place. And we'll put the wheel back on and get ready to hit the road. Alright, so here we are, just wrapping up, getting the wheels and lug nuts back on. Gonna put these on and snug them up, but we're not going to be able to get them tight, so we're going to put it on the ground so that the weight of the vehicle keeps the tire from turning. We can snug them up and hit the road. Just I just want to tell everybody at home, anybody can do this. If you have any mechanical skills whatsoever, you can do this and save yourself a ton of money. Because the parts in this was less than $150, and you go to a mechanic and try to get this done, you're probably going to pay twice as much for parts and labor, and then you won't even have the satisfaction of doing it yourself. See what I mean about the tire spinning? We're just going to snug them up, get the tire pressed on to the hub so that we can put it on the ground, snug them up whenever it's on the ground. So that's it, we're done. Alright, so what we did today was change the brake pads and rotors on a 2003 Toyota Sequoia. I recommend anybody try this at home. It's not hard. You have your basic vehicle manual you can get from any auto parts store to show you how to do it, show you where the bolts are, and basically just run through how to do it. We spent about $150 on parts versus a mechanic where you'll spend over $300 to $500 depending on where you are in their hourly rate. So it saved us about $150 to $350 depending on where you're at. And it was real simple to do. If you have questions, you can email me at my Facebook page. And get in your garage. Start working on your own car. Save yourself some money.